Hey guys, it's me, Christian from Casually Christian, for a new episode of my show. For those who are watching us for the first time here on Casually Christian, we talk about people's life, their interests, and their passions. So if you like what you hear, please remember to hit like and subscribe and smash that notification bell to catch the latest episodes of Casually Christian. So on today's show, we're going to talk about our favorite books and our favorite authors. And since I'm a movie lover, I'm a movie buff, we're also going to talk about our favorite adaptations. So joining me today is a returning guest. He hasn't been on the show for close to 2 years. Is Byron Vasquez Jr. Byron, thank you
Hey,
for joining
Christian.
my show, buddy. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, I especially like it's like 10 o'clock on the Saturday. I know like a lot of people get it's like 10 o'clock. You know what I mean?
I know.
It means a lot to get up.
At first, I was like, "Can we move it back?" But because I
Yeah,
woke up, I went to bed around like 1 o'clock in the morning watching some TV last night.
yeah.
As you know, I went to my sister's band
Mhm.
performance and came back to get to be up early. And I've been waking up early these last 3 days. I thought, "Oh, Saturday I can relax," but nope, I'm here.
Yeah, you gotta keep on hustling, man. Keep on getting your
Yeah,
face out there, my dude.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
like I understand. It's for somebody, for me, like I love to sleep in on the weekends. It's like one of
Yeah.
those my favorite pastimes. And I always think it's like, where did I get it from? And then like now that I've been working at my mom's house remotely, she gets up around like 11, so I get it from her.
Well,
I
when I
blame
was,
it on my
it's funny
parents.
because when I was growing up, we were, it was very rarely that my mom would allow us to sleep in very late. I
Yeah,
would be up early for Saturday morning cartoons, obviously, but if
yeah,
I did sleep in a little bit later, she would wake us up and time to start cleaning, time to start doing
yeah,
chores. So I always have a sense of guilt for sleeping in late, even as an
yeah.
adult. I don't know what it is. Like I feel bad for sleeping in late, but I have other siblings who they don't care. They'll sleep until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they feel no,
Yeah.
not a sense of guilt.
I know. I wish like in my next life I have no guilt at all. I could just live,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, without it's like, whatever, like just living in the day. But
Right.
you know what? What was Since you haven't been on the show for a bit, what give us an update, man? What have you been up to since you've been on Casually Christian?
Yeah. Well, so I think I was, I'm sorry, I lost my voice a couple of days ago, and I'm
Mhm.
still recuperating. So the last time I was on your show, I believe it was in 2020. It was
Yeah.
right in the middle of the pandemic, so
Yeah.
right, and yeah, not much has changed. I mean, little by little, well, actually, let's see. Personally, I traveled. I went to that year. I went to the East Coast, and I went.
Yeah, you went traveling all over America, right? I saw that you were
Oh,
like were going like on a road trip everywhere.
yeah, well, I did that twice. So I did that once in 2020. I flew to Nashville, and then from there we drove to Miami, and then I drove back through Georgia and Alabama. And then this last November, I had decided to go visit my sister. One of my sisters had moved to Nashville about 3 years, like the year right before the like 2019,
Mm.
October 2019, right before the pandemic. And I drove for halfway. And I decided to go visit her, and I decided I'm gonna drive because, well, two reasons. There was artist in concert
Yeah,
that I really like. One of my
you want
favorite
to check out.
artists was out there in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I thought, what a great moment to go visit her and see the artist. And I thought, well, why don't I go for? I wasn't sure if I was gonna go all the way to Miami and stay there for a little bit or stay in Nashville,
Mhm.
but I thought, I haven't seen my sister in a while. I'm gonna go stay with her, and so I drove all the way to Nashville, and I planned to stay there for 6 weeks. While I was there,
Mm.
I was contemplating between going to Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic because
Mm.
it's like the flights are so close, and it was not expensive going to Puerto Rico. I decided to go to the Dominican Republic, and I went there for 4 days, and then I came back, and then I stayed in Nashville again for another couple of weeks. Then I drove to Miami, and then I came back to Nashville, and then from there I drove back, and so it was a really cool cross country road
Yeah,
trip in
man, that's
November.
something I would love to do some point in my life, is to like travel somewhere for like a few, more than just 2 weeks and worry about my emails.
Right,
uh,
exactly.
I saw that you were also auditioning in Tennessee, I think, and you landed
Yes.
like some kind of commercial or some kind of spot.
So I when I'm looking for a place
Yeah.
to relocate to, and I'm trying to decide between either Nashville or Florida or Miami. But when I went to Nashville, I wanted to see, can I survive? Can I build the same life over there that I have over here? So
Mhm.
when I got there, I got involved in I started going to the same kind of clubs I would do over here. I started looking for agents. I started looking for work. So I was working while I was in Nashville as well,
Mhm.
and I got a lot of work, a lot of interpreting work.
Yeah.
There was more than I got here. Nashville is such a growing city, and it's. I don't know if you've ever been to Nashville.
No, I only been that the only state that I've been other than Nevada is Texas.
Oh, Texas, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great state. But Nashville is like a mini Los Angeles. I mean, it's
Mhm.
like these big buildings. It's a big city, but it's so small. I got lost, and I was going to a location. I forgot where I was going, and I got lost. But just because it's such a small city, I accidentally got to the right place. You know? Like I just
That's
drove
good.
around in circles. I'm like, oh, I think I'm here. And because of that, I was able to find a lot of work, and I was able to connect with an agency. And because of the proximity between Atlanta to Nashville, they said we have a lot of work. And so the day after I signed, I gave them my reel. I told them that I was a SAG actor in Los Angeles. They signed me, and the day after, got me
Wow.
an audition. Yeah, for a commercial, and then they've been getting me some steady, good movie auditions, which unfortunately, and these big ones, I'm talking about these really big ones that you're gonna hear about coming out, and I've been excited about those auditions. I just have been disappointed that I've not booked, I've not booked those auditions thus
But it
far.
seems like they were still like giving you the opportunity to get yourself out there. Do you feel like you
Yes,
were getting more opportunity over there than over here in Los Angeles?
I was lately, yes.
Yeah.
I got because I mean they were getting me. I mean, this agent got me a audition the next day, and not just so I got an audition for a Cheetos commercial when I was out there, and then I got an audition for the movie coming out with Nicolas Cage and
Yeah.
Nicholas Hoult, the vampire movie Renfield.
Hmm.
I auditioned for that film. Then I auditioned for some other one I don't remember. Then I auditioned for one with Orlando Bloom. He's coming out with a new movie. It's called The Red Right Hand, and I had an audition for one role,
Hmm.
and then they brought me back in for a second role. So I didn't that audition. I didn't get through them.
But
Yeah,
you know what? It's okay because like yeah, you wanted to get it, but at least it's giving you like the experience to put your foot in the door again instead of just having like a dry spell. So you're kind of like picking it up again.
right, exactly.
And that's good, man. I'm really glad that you're getting yourself out there like in another state, and
Right.
that's working out. But and during your travels, did you happen to read anything like along your way? Did you bring a book to read or anything like that?
I did bring a couple of books to read because I love to read. But while I was traveling, I was also given a couple books from some people that I met, and then my sister as well.
Yeah.
And so I remember bringing it back, and I would just a couple weeks ago I was going through my stuff, and I said, "Oh, this is the book that they gave me. Let me add it to my queue. Let me just start reading it now." So I started reading it, and I finished it, and it was called actually I have it right here. It was called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
So it's
It
like
was
a self-help book.
yes, it's stuff. So I've been reading a lot of lately. Before when I was younger, I would read a lot of fiction,
Mhm.
literature, and as of like the end of right around when I took my sister to Nashville the first time in October 2019, I read a nonfiction. Well, I like to read biographies as well of actors that I love,
Mhm.
and but this I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it really changed my life in a big
Mhm.
way. And from there, they gave other books that you could read to continue down this path of wealth building and self help. And so I started picking up more of that. And then while I was in Nashville, another book that I actually read, my sister got me hooked on this show called Southern Charmed. It's a
Mhm.
reality show on Bravo, and I watched like half of the series with her. That was something that she made me do every night was watch the show with her. And we there was a character on the show that at first I really did not like because he came across very arrogant.
Mhm.
But the more the series went in, I realized, wow, this guy's really intelligent. He's really smart. He quotes literature. He quotes Shakespeare. You could tell
Mhm.
that he's really, really, really smart. And it turns out he went to Vanderbilt University and he's really well read. And so for Christmas, I believe, or my sister sent me this book. His name was Shep Rose, and she sent me this book, The Average Expectations: Lessons in Lowering the Bar by Shep Rose, which is the main character.
I love
And it
the
was
titles that you've been giving me. Is like the subtle way is not giving a fuck, lowering your expectations. I love like quirky titles like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been those two books are really they were actually very similar in in how to approach life and whatnot. And
You
so
know,
uh,
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I
no,
before I forget, what was that like? You said that. the book changed your life. I want to know how it changed your life, like that self-help book. It
Oh,
was
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
yeah, like I want to know about that because that was one of the questions I had today. Like, what was a book that changed your life? And that's very important because like reading, it's more than just entertainment. It's about fulfilling, like
Right.
understanding other people's perspective and like also educating yourself on like what you could, you're looking at your inner self and what you could do.
Right.
So let's talk about that. How why did that change your life?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll just preface this with that there is a non-fiction, there's a fiction book that really had impacted my soul. We can talk about that later. And then there's
Mhm.
this book that had a practical um, application to my life and how it changed practically. And this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, was a book written by Robert Kiyosaki, and it talked about he had these two different dads. It was one of his real dad, and one
Mhm.
was of his best friend's father, who he looked at like a surrogate father.
Yeah.
And his actual father was an educated professor at a university, and his friend's father was not. He was not an educated man, but he was an entrepreneur. And how his father was in debt, and his father was struggle for money, even though he was a university professor, even though he had all the
Wow.
accolades. And the entrepreneur who wasn't educated was flourishing with money, and how he learned the lessons of the differences between being rich and being poor and whatnot. And when I finished reading that book, I realized, wow, the way that I approached money, the way that I looked at money,
Mhm.
everything was just radically changed my life. And it talked about just different principles about paying yourself first, getting out of debt, all these different things that I knew, but I didn't apply. And when I
Yeah.
read the book, it kind of put a mirror in my face and said, "Hey, what are you doing? You don't have to be struggling for money. You don't have to. I learned through that book that wealth building is a lot simpler than people realize. It's just easy. It's the discipline is what's needed."
Mhm.
And so from there, they recommended other readings, and so I started reading. And that's how it changed my life. Basically, it really made me look at, wow, the way that I'm approaching money. That's why I'm not getting where I'm going. And I
Mhm.
started from zero at that point. So that was October 2019, zero, like really at ground zero with not a lot of
Mhm.
money, and just not managing it well. And then to today, where like I now am very uh,
Stringent.
financially, yeah, and just how much my with the growth in my financial situation in the few couple of years, just by following principles. How
Yeah.
wow, I moved, like before I would just save money in a bank account, and I realized,
Mhm.
well, you're not getting anything in a bank account, a savings account. You're getting like a 0.25%. And
Yeah.
so I learned about retirement, because at the time I was in my mid 30s. I'm like, well, what, like, as we were talking about earlier, facing on mortality, what's going to happen to me when I get older? I don't have any
Yeah.
money saved up for retirement. I don't work for a company, so there's no 401ks for me. What am I going to do? And I heard about this, a Roth IRA and an IRA, and I didn't know what that
Mhm.
was at
Mhm.
the time. And so I went to my credit union, because I have a credit union. I just kind of asked them, like, what should I do? They said, well, whatever is best for your taxes. And I said, I don't know. Let's just open up a Roth, because I heard you don't pay taxes on a Roth.
Yeah.
So, and I started kind of just putting in like $20, $100. I had like $1,000 after a year in there, and I realized, well, I'm not getting any. And the more I learned after he recommended all these books, and I got The
Mhm.
Intelligent Investor, and I got Think and Grow Rich, and other books as well. And I realized, oh, I'm not getting any returns on this. I'm going to move it to a fund, an index fund. And so I transferred that money to a Vanguard fund, and within that year, I saw growth that I've never seen before. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Really?
yeah,
What what's
it,
a Vanguard uh fund?
So Vanguard is it's a financial company, and they invest in the stock market. A
Mhm.
lot of people invest in single stocks, which could be great,
Yeah.
but it could also be very, depending on the
It's a
company.
gamble, right?
It's not really a gamble. A lot of people think it's a gamble, but
Mhm.
not really. If you pick a good, strong company, and there's books that teach you how to analyze, companies, and analyze, the P and E's and whatnot. But there's also index funds or ETFs that follow certain indices, and they invest in all these different companies. And so you have a lot of there's a hedge against risk, because you're investing in so many different companies.
Yeah.
You're so diversified that you're really going to lose money. And historically, the stock market has averaged over 10% every year. And if you look at one of those, like, the graphs, you'll notice that the stock market has always, even though there's like dips, like right now the stock market is dipped, it always is going
Or
up,
rebounds.
rebounds, but it's the trend is always going upward. The trend is always growing, even if it drops. So it's never dropped back to where it was at the beginning. And so I moved my Roth IRA from just a savings account to buy.
And it was like you already see the difference, huh?
Oh yeah, within 1 year, I'm like, how much money did I just go back? And from there, I'm like, okay, well, that's great. Now I have, now I know more about it. So now I know that the Roth IRA is tax free. Everything you put in there is it's after taxes. So you pay taxes on it like your regular paycheck. You put in, and you can only because of the tax, it's a tax advantage account. You can only invest 6,000 a year.
Okay.
That's how much the government allows you to. But everything after that is tax free. Even the growth is
Really?
tax free. So anything
Okay.
when you retire, when you end, it's tax free to the people that you give it to as an heir. So
Yeah.
you could bequeath it to someone, and it's still tax free. And so I thought, oh, this is great. So now I'm going to start trying to, like, every year maximize my Roth savings, and I put 6,000 into my Roth. And then around that time, I also got a commercial, like, the commercial. So I had a big chunk of money, and I felt really like responsible for that money. I felt like, this is, I've earned it, but I felt like it was given to me, and I don't want to just squander it. And
Yeah.
so my mom at the time, she was very smart with money, and she invested too. And she said, oh, I'm going to invest in this oil stock. I think you should, she reached out to me. She said, can I use you to invest in this oil stock? I just want to open up an account. Can I use your name? I said, well, if you're going to do it too, then I'm going to do it with you. So
Mhm.
I went to this is all because of the book Robert Kiyosaki, because before I would never have dared
Yeah.
to do that. They also he also has this game that you learn, like, you play this game and you learn how to, like, do investments and stuff, so you kind of get ready. So anyway, so we went to the bank, and I deposited like a huge chunk of money into this stock, this
Mhm.
oil stock. And then that was 2019, and then it went down. From the moment that I invested in it, it just started going down, down, down,
Mhm.
and then COVID happened, and then just dropped dramatically.
Wow.
And I learned, something reading these books. A lot of people say, like, a lot of these investors say that um, when it's fearful, that's when you want, like, millionaires are made when people are scared, when people, because the stock market drops, so everyone thinks take your money out. And I said that's the wrong thing to do. When the stock market drops, you want to invest more because it's
More.
going to rebound. And
Mhm.
so I did that. I just left it in there, and I kept investing more, and then it went from like 30, it just shot up. I don't know, the last couple of weeks the oil stocks just went up again. And so then
Yeah.
I had the oil stocks, and then during COVID I was getting unemployment because my job completely just, like,
Gotcha.
disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my job actually was going in person and interpreting for people live, and I had no work after that. So I was getting unemployment, and at the time, the government was giving, like, a lot of money um, to
For those who were
people.
affected by COVID.
Those are exactly, and because of that, because of Robert Kiyosaki's book, I had paid off. This is the most amazing thing. I didn't expect COVID to happen. I mean, nobody expected
Yeah.
COVID to happen. And when I finished reading that book, I realized I need to get out of debt. So I paid any outstanding debt I had from between October to, like, October 2019 to 2019 to about January 2020. So I paid off any debt. Then I started learning about Dave Ramsey and what he suggests about the emergency fund. So I started building an emergency fund. So I had a good chunk of emergency money right when COVID hit. So I had no debt. I had a low cost of living because I try to keep, low cost of living,
Mhm.
and I had emergency money. So when I started getting unemployment, I had all this money, and so instead of spending it, I just started putting it in a brokerage account. I started investing it and investing it. So it was because of these books that I was reading during the pandemic. Financially, I am so much more ahead than I ever thought I could ever be. And so it's been an incredible ride, and
That's
that's
really
because,
incredible.
yeah, it is because of those books that I'm reading that I'm gonna,
So you're like a financial guru right now.
I'm learning a lot.
You
I'm
should
learning a
write your
lot.
own book, man.
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind. Like I said, there's still lots to learn. I just started going to meetup on financial, like, wealth builders meetup. I started
Yeah.
last Sunday, and reading. I just read a lot. I'm reading right now. I'm reading Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover,
Yeah.
and I'm also reading. I mean, should we go on with that, or
Oh no, I mean, like, it's. I mean, we're talking about books, and like self help books is a big niche in the world of books. There's like lots of them, and they're very lucrative. And I watch a lot of YouTube videos say if you want to make money writing books, write a self help book because that's where it's at.
yeah,
So I mean, reading. Here's a little fun tidbit that reading. The more you read, it turns on these neural pathways in your mind that keeps it elastic and fresh. So literally, like, reading is the workout for your mind. So the more you
oh,
read, it keeps you more focused, more like aware. So it's not of course, it's like obvious, right? It's like you go work out, you're gonna get a six pack every day. You know what I mean?
Right,
It's the same thing
right.
with your head. So yeah, it's just a little tidbit for right now. I have a bunch of stuff. For our show, I have like some quotes from Stephen King and James Baldwin. And you know what? Since we were talking about like self books right now, what about literature, like fiction books? Like who? Let's start off with this one. What book you couldn't finish because it was just like it was just too boring?
Um, everybody loves. Oh, well, I have it downstairs. I haven't finished it yet. Everybody loves Jack Kerouac, a Jack
Uh,
Kerouac novel that I started reading, and it was like, oh, I have to get through this book. It was so,
like a chore, right?
yes, it was like a chore. It was, and it was about a road trip. I forgot what it was called. It was a road trip. Did I lose you?
I'm here. You're just,
Okay.
full shot right here.
Oh yeah. No, sorry. So it was On the Open Road. I think it was called On the Open Road by Jack Kerouac. And I thought, wow, this is cool. Like I loved a road trip. I want, back then my dream was to road trip across the country, and so I tried to get through that, and I just couldn't do it. And then there was one more book that I that was really difficult to get through, but I did press on, and
Mm.
it was oh man, I forgot the name of it. It's been years since I've read it, but I forgot, but it was by a poet who wrote this novel, and he wrote a series of he wrote a city, right? And in this city that he created, he wrote novels based on different people that lived in the city.
That's
And
cool.
he wrote one. It was sad. When I got to the end of it, it was like, oh, it was a good book, but the prose was so eloquent and it was so poetic
Mm.
that I'm like, you really have to like, what are you saying? To get one page just to give a
I see.
sentiment away.
So you
Yeah.
felt like he was just giving you a lot of fluff, and you just wanted to hear more of like the action that was going on instead of all these pros, because it's like
Well,
he was overdoing it. You felt like.
yeah, yes. I feel because I had been reading a lot of John Grisham right before that, and John Grisham
Mhm.
doesn't really get to the, he's really
Yeah,
quick and get to the. Then I transitioned to reading. It was Wendell Berry. Wendell Berry was the author, and it was just a lot more poetic and a lot more prose and a lot more descriptive and more,
yeah,
and it was like, hey, I just got done reading John Grisham, and now I'm going to this, and this is a little bit more involved, but the outcome was really beautiful. I mean, just the way that he would write, and then I would notice that my vocabulary would improve, and that the way that I would even speak sometimes would
yeah,
just kind of be more embellished, I would say. So
yeah. Definitely. Like, and the reason you couldn't finish that one book, was it because it was too boring? It wasn't going anywhere, or is it just like it was like watching like a bad movie, like reading a bad movie?
well, not
What
bad.
was it
It was
about
just it
it?
took too long to get because it was so descriptive. It was like he was describing every. It take a long time to get to the next event because he was describing everything, so descriptively. Excuse me, and so poetically that it just took too long to get to the next. But I really enjoyed it at the end. It was this guy's Wendell Berry. I forgot the actual name of the book, but it was about this um barber, this kid who left his hometown in a small town,
Mm.
and it was based in the 50s, and he became a barber in some other town, and he kind of inserted himself in this new town. He never really he even though he lived there for 50 years, he never really inserted himself into the community. He was just kind of a
Mm.
barber that was on the outskirts, but he fell in love with this girl that he never had the courage to say that he had feelings for her.
Yeah.
And at the end, she ends up like dying, and I think she ends up saying, "Oh, I loved you this entire time. I don't know why you never
Mm.
said anything."
And that was the end of the story.
And that was pretty much the end of the story. And I'm like, wow, it was really sad. So yeah, that was the two books that I remember that was really difficult to get through.
Well, for me, like one book that was really difficult to get through, I didn't even finish it, and it was not because like the writer, he didn't. He's a really good writer. Like, is James Baldwin? Have you ever heard of James Baldwin?
I've heard of them, yeah.
Yeah, he was a civil activist, during the '60s, and he was out and gay. Like, he was like what society didn't want, like back in the
Mm,
'60s. And he wrote this book called Giovanni's Room, and it was about a gay man who lived his life on the down low. And when the story is that he went to a gay bar, and the cops raided it, and at the time in America, where if you got caught in a gay bar, they would publish all the names in the local newspaper, outing everybody. So he almost got caught. So he moves to France, and he falls in love with one guy named Giovanni. But at the same time, he has this girlfriend, and so he goes over there, and it was really good. I thought it was like. I was surprised. Like, that book should be like taught in schools. You know what I mean? It was so good. And and of course it had a sad ending. Um, but it was an experience because I didn't know that happened. I didn't know that gay men were outed. Like if you went to a gay bar like before it was cool. But yeah, I didn't know that that was the world back in the day. And James Baldwin published this book at the time where like these stories about a story about a gay man were not published at all. So it was very controversial. And when I read his next book, which was his first book, was "Go Tell It on the Mountaintop," I couldn't finish it, man, because it takes place in Harlem. It's about this boy who his father's a preacher, and I just couldn't finish it. Just like not because it was terrible, it's just that I was right. I just finished Doctor Sleep, which was the sequel to The Shining, and I moved on to that story about the kid in Harlem, and I was like, well, I'm transitioning from this ghost story to a thing that's set in reality, and I was
Right.
like, fuck, man, this thing needs some ghosts.
Right, exactly,
You
exactly right. Isn't it
like,
weird, like how you have to transition? Like the next book you pick has to be on some sort of same path.
yeah,
Otherwise, the
it throws
dichotomy.
you off.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
and
Yeah,
it's not because I want to give it another chance because like it wasn't bad. Like it was just like I wanted more thrills to it. I mean, I knew like the experience of a black kid in Harlem sucked,
yeah,
and I'll just give it another chance, but not because I didn't finish it because it was. It's just like I should have picked something that was kind of like in the same path, leading me to like a book in reality.
right,
Even if it was like based in reality, I still wanted. He's like, oh, sometimes I hear my dead grandma in the hallway. He's like, that would have like,
right,
oh,
right,
okay, I'll continue.
right,
But yeah, that's one of the stories that took me a long time to. It's one of the stories that I did not finish, and
right.
I don't know if because of social media, but do you find it hard finishing books now because like you just have so much distractions with like not only because like the work life, but you have like a device that you could just procrastinate all the time. You know what I mean? And like it just like your attention span is not there anymore. I know I do. I've been procrastinating on reading the books right now, and I have like a bunch of books that I want to check out, but it's just that I dropped the ball in my late 30s, man. Like back in my teens, I was reading constantly. I consumed books. Even in my 20s, I consumed books. But now, like right now, where I'm at my age, I just haven't finished a book yet. Yeah, last year I wanted to finish like two books, but I was only able to finish one and a half.
Well, it's funny because last year I had a goal of getting 52 books in,
Wow.
and I got like I didn't get that. I got like 10 or 12.
So yeah,
But what
do you feel like social media and having a smartphone
well,
makes it difficult to finish a book?
I would say no right now. Well, because a couple years ago, I don't remember when it was. It was before the pandemic. I had a goal of cutting out Facebook for 6 months, so I deleted Facebook for 6 months, and I wanted to be more present in my own life, and I did that. And in those 6 months, I realized, wow, I don't need to be on Facebook all the time. I don't need to wake up and just go on, Facebook or really be on it as much. And I feel more present in my own life when I'm not on social media. And so I got the habit of not having to be on social media all the time. But then last year, when I had a goal of reading, because I reading Robert Kiyosaki, I said that things that one thing that billionaires and millionaires do is they read, 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 read. They consume as much as they can. And I thought, all right, last year I said I'm going to read 52 books, but it got me in the habit of I take my phone and I set 15-minute timer because when I was in school in English class we'd have to read 15 minutes every good morning. So I
Mhm.
said I'm going to copy that. I'm going to read for 15 minutes. So I put my timer, boom, 15 minutes. I sit there and I put on some classical music and I just get in my zone and I read 15 minutes every day. And I read 3 books because I read one self-help book, one, and I'm not sure if you know this, but I am multilingual, so
Mhm.
I'm learning French as well, and I speak Spanish and ASL, and I read one book in French and one book in Spanish. So I do about 45 minutes, 15 minutes each book. That way, it doesn't overwhelm me. That way, I'm not forced to sit there and read, and my attention span does get
Wander.
yeah. I'm like, okay, I have 15 minutes, and then the alarm will go off. The next book, and then I just wait.
That's a really helpful advice, man. I think I'll take up on that. Like just sending little like 15 minutes, and then like
Mhm.
and eventually that pays off,
It does, yep. Hmm.
because like it does like you pick up the book and like it's like and then you start kind of like your mind starts drifting because like
Right,
it's
right,
like damn it,
exactly.
Christian, don't be this way. What was one of the favorite books that you read when you were a kid? Like not that self help book, but like a book that you just consumed because it was so entertaining and it
Yes,
was just like
I've
grabbed
been
your
waiting for you to ask that question because
yeah,
this is, I think, what started me. Well, when I was a kid, I read a lot of Goosebumps, right? A lot of
yeah, of
Goosebumps,
course.
and a lot of I think it was the Hardy Boys, the detective
Mm,
kids that you know. But when I was in junior high, I was introduced to this author that I'm sure everybody knows, The Outsiders.
mm,
S.E. Hinton. And after reading that book, I was a great book in my seventh grade English class. I thought, hey, this is a good book. When I went home, I was looking through my parents' library, my mom's library at the time, and I saw S.E. Hinton. I'm like, oh, what is this book? And it was called That Was Then, This Is Now. That book just it hit me in my heart. Like I will like that was the most I think after I finished reading it, I threw it against the wall because
mm.
it was so emotionally charged. And I
Really?
yeah, on the website, I on her website, SEN she said that people often tell me that they throw the book against the wall because it's such an emotionally charged ending. It's such a controversial ending. And
Hmm.
I was like, oh, this has happened to me. And ever since then, I read every S.E. Hinton novel that was out there. And if people were big fans of hers, they are all connected. But it's such a subtle way they're connected that
Yeah.
you wouldn't know it if you didn't read it.
It's like part of the same universe, unless like
Exactly.
yeah.
Like The Outsiders was just like that was that this is now has characters from The Outsiders, and then there's a character that doesn't pop up until her last book that happens like 10 years later. That's connected to the character from That Was Then This Is Now in a big way, but you would not know it. I mean, even if you didn't have to read it. I mean, you don't have to read all the books to enjoy that one, but if you
Mhm.
did read all the books, you would
It makes
understand
it
the
better.
connection.
It makes it yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, like Stephen King does the same thing too. Like he has this whole universe in every book. Like you don't have to read everything, but if you have read like one of them and it connects it to that story in just a little way, it just makes it juicier. It's like having like a piece of
Yeah,
cake. I'm like,
exactly.
yummy, you
Add a
know?
little extra flavor. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, for
exactly.
reals, dude. And I love it. I love it when writers do that. That's when you
Yeah,
know they know what they're doing, you know? It's like, oh,
right.
this guy, he's legit.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that I'm doing right now with the anthology that I've been working on forever. I'm trying like each little story is kind of like their characters are kind of like entwined. So
Right.
you can read it on its own, but if you read chronologically and finish it to the end, like it's gonna be pretty juicy once it's
Right.
when it's
Right.
complete. But what is one series? I guess that's what do you consider? Not those weren't series, but like a Lord of the Rings or like or the Jason Bournes. Have you ever been into like any series like that, or is that those are
Mm,
too intense? Because for me,
yeah.
they're too like I can't. You know, just give me one book.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know what? No, I have not actually read a series. Well, I've never. Well, Goosebumps, but not really. That's not a series. So I would
Like
say,
a Harry Potter, you know.
no. Yeah, I've never read. Well, I have never read a Harry Potter. I never got to a series except recently. One of the Spanish books. I was at Target. I'm like, well, I need a Spanish book right now, right? So I
Yeah,
bought this. It looked interesting. It was about mafia, or so I thought. And so I bought it. I started reading it, and it was just oh, it was very sexually descriptive. It was and I'll show you right now. It's called 365 Days, and I was like the Spanish version of 50 Shades of Grey. And I
okay.
learned later that it is a series. It's a trilogy of books, and
Oh,
it's called 365 Days. And
I can see
it's
it.
yeah, it's a Polish. I think the author is Polish, and it's translated to Spanish. And so I got it at the Walmart or Target. Thinking, oh, this isn't like this mafia kidnaps this woman.
Yeah,
So that's
sure.
what it was. This mafia guy kidnaps this woman who's he's in love with, and he says that you have a 1 year. You have to stay with me for 365 days, so I can convince you to fall in love with me. So I thought that was interesting, but I didn't realize it was
Very
very
sexually
like
charged.
sexual, and it was like every page are having very descriptive sex acts. And I thought, well, at least I'm learning vocabulary in in
Oh
these
boy.
sexual acts. So,
Yeah.
but it is a series. It's part of the series. I don't think I'm going
I
to
mean,
read
was
it.
is it good? Did you find it entertaining?
Well, I'm still reading it. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I never got into like the gray. What's it called? The
50
Fifty
Shades of
Shades of
Grey.
Grey
Yeah, I
or
did
the
that.
Harry Potters or the Lord of the Rings. It's just like yeah, I was trying to get into the Stephen King Dark Tower, but the first book took me a very long time to finish. I was like, I powered through it, but I finished it, and the climax to the book wasn't really what I was expecting. It was like there these the antagonists and the protagonist. They were just having a conversation, and this guy's put like
Mm-hmm.
the wizard puts a spell on him, and then he wakes up, and then the wizard's dead. Oh, and then like the book's over, and I was like, oh, I wanted more. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I have the set. I want to read it because like I know the plot of it. I know I seen like very I seen illustrations of different scenes and very intriguing. And I do want to finish it. And did you watch the adaptation of the Dark Tower uh,
Mm-mm.
with Israel Albla and what's it
Oh,
called?
Idris
Matthew
Elba?
McConaughey. Yeah, Matthew McConaughey.
Oh no, I have not.
That wasn't good. That was terrible.
Oh really? Oh wow.
Yeah, like it was not at all like the book. They had like little things about it, but it wasn't good. Actually, like Amazon is doing it as a series now. So I'm thinking it's like, well, maybe it will do. I think the Dark Tower series will do better as a series instead of
Series.
a movie, because the movie's very like you only have like 2 or 3
Right.
hours to tell your tale, and this
Right.
story, because it was all one story. Like they condensed the whole series into one
Mhm.
story,
I think
one
it's
movie.
tough, right? To adapt a movie, a book to a movie is tough. Sometimes it works better adapting a book to a TV show because you have a lot longer, you have
Yeah,
more episodes to tell the whole story, and you can develop the characters better. Yeah.
absolutely. And
Mhm.
what is one of your favorite adaptations?
I love John Grisham. I love John Grisham, and there are two adaptations from John Grisham, his oeuvre, that I really enjoy. One was A Time to Kill. Actually, they've adapted a lot of his
Hmm.
work. But my favorite ones have been A Time to Kill and The Client. I
I
think,
remember when they made that into a movie in the '90s, The Client.
yeah, like the night, right, exactly. And I think those two are when I read the book, because I watched the movies first, then I read the novels, and I realized, wow, these two movies are the ones that are closest to the how like I my experience reading the novel, it was watching the
It's
film.
close.
Right, and so A Time to Kill, those two, and I actually there was a play. Someone adapted it to a play as well. So I read the book, watched the movie, seen the play of A Time to Kill, and The Client with Susan Sarandon and the late Brad Redfro, and she actually ended up winning, I believe, the Oscar. No, that was for Dead Man Walking. She was nominated for an Oscar for The Client.
Yeah, yeah, and the like those are like that was the your favorite adaptations, the client and
Right.
the yeah, and my favorite one, they all happen to be Stephen King, because like I think he writes like the stuff that I love, like the stuff
Yeah.
that I love to watch. But my favorite adaptations is like Stand by Me, which
Oh, that
and
was a good one. Yeah.
yeah, like when I saw that, it was like because I watched it when I was a kid, and when it
Right.
said based on a short story by Stephen King, it blew my mind. Like he wrote this? I'm like, it
Yeah.
didn't have like monsters or anything, like it didn't have like and it's like he writes characters that like they're well rounded, like there's conflict within them, and like they're mainstream. You know what I mean? They're like people could get it. And like when I
Right.
saw Stand by Me, The Shawshank Redemption, Misery is one of my favorite adaptations,
Oh,
and
right.
also Doctor Sleep, which we watched during the pandemic, like on streaming service. And
Right.
I had my reservations for Doctor Sleep because it was the sequel to The Shining. I'm like, oh, how is this going to be? But actually, like the filmmaker stuck, like it was true to the book, and not only that, he improved the ending from the book. Like
Oh,
the ending in
wow.
the movie was better than the ending in the book. I'm like, this is really satisfying. Like I was so floored by how much I love that movie, the Doctor Sleep.
Right.
You should watch it.
Yeah, definitely.
If you watch the Shining, like the Stanley Kubrick one,
Yeah.
they bring elements to it. It's like this. It's the same universe. Like he's not doing like the Stephen King universe. He did,
Right.
even though like he paid homage to Kubrick as well, and it was really good. Well done. Have you seen this show called A Midnight Mass?
No.
It's on HBO Max,
Mm.
not HBO Max. I'm sorry, Netflix. But
Mm.
it came out this year. The Netflix always comes out with a like a horror series like for Halloween, and
Mm.
this that last year was Midnight Mass, and it was I was like, wow, this is like a Stephen King adaptation, like because it was kind of like Salem's Lot with
Oh,
oh
right.
whatever, it's like vampires, and like the way it felt like a play because everybody had like these long monologues, and
Mm.
then I love this. I love that series so much that I researched the filmmaker, and the filmmaker was the director of Doctor Sleep. So it
Oh,
all,
wow.
yeah, I'm like, oh, okay. He got elements from Stephen King and put it into
Right.
this story. And they're like, okay, but you guys should check that out, like Doctor Sleep and
Yeah.
Midnight Mass on Netflix. Brilliant stuff. Like I love, like I read a lot of like horror stories, like thrillers stuff, like Dean Cain, like like just like that type of
Right.
genre. So
Right.
last year I was trying to get myself out of that genre. I want to step outside my comfort zone. So I read The Picture of Dorian Gray, and
Mm.
then I started reading The Gods of Jade. It was called. Let me pull it up. I want to say the right name for it. The Gods of Jade and Shadow, and it was written by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and she's Latina. So I wanted to support, like, Latino, So I gave Barnes and Noble my money. I read it, and it was pretty good. I haven't finished it yet. I think if they would make that book into a movie, it would do great as an animated movie, like a Pixar movie.
Oh, right. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. But yeah, you guys should check out her work. And what I really also like about Sylvia is that I follow her on Twitter, and she said that she grew up dyslexic, and I was like, oh wow, like, because I grew up that way too, and so
Mm.
I kind of felt like connected with her, not only because of
Right.
my our heritage, but because like
Right.
we had the same learning disability when we were young. And she's a writer. She was a well established writer. She has a bunch of books written, and
Right.
I'm still coming into my own. But
Right.
yeah, what genre did you step outside your comfort zone? Like, you're trying something different. Oh,
Yeah, before I get to that, I wanted to tell you there's a quick story of another a book that was adapted that kind of impacted me personally. It was called A Peaceful Warrior, and at the time I was heavily into gymnastics and I had busted my knee.
yeah,
And I went to this movie. I read this book called A Peaceful Warrior, which is about a gymnast who injured his knee. And I went to the movie theater one day to watch the adaptation. And right after the movie, I was so motivated. Yes, okay, I can do this. Like a few months after my knee felt better, and I went back to the gym and I started trying gymnastics. And my knee was just shot. I realized that day, and I cursed that movie for inspiring me to go back
oh
and
shit.
realize that my knee was done forever. Um, so self-help, I think those nonfiction books. Before I would only read fiction. I would rarely read nonfiction, and I started by reading I started moving towards nonfiction by reading the Sean Penn biography, and I read that like 30 times because he's my favorite actor. And then I thought, I should read other actors' biography to see what I can learn from them. So
Yeah,
I got Bryan Cranston's biography, and I think I got like Daniel Day-Lewis biography, and then there was a musician that I really respect, and I got her biography, and then from there I started reading other books. So I read a book on like the U.S. history. It was really interesting. One year I read a book on the US, like how they built the US Constitution. And just so happened I just found it in like the shelf. I said, oh, let me read it.
yeah.
And that year I went to Philadelphia and Washington D.C. and I saw the Liberty Bell and I saw where the actual it was coincidence, right, where I had read the
Mhm.
book and when all the delegates went to this place in Philadelphia to ratify the Constitution. And then I had just happened to go to visit a friend of mine in D.C. She's like, let's go to Philadelphia, and we ended up seeing the house where the book took place.
Yeah,
And so it made history come alive. I think from there I
very
started like,
cool.
oh, I could read more nonfiction, and then Robert Kiyosaki and all that other stuff. So
I got you, man. Like, I haven't really delved into like biographies yet. I mean, I read like conspiracy books, like UFOs, and it's well based in reality.
one
uh,
book I'd recommend to you if you want to try to read like a nonfiction book, but it's still kind of haunting. I read the memoirs of Sue Klebold,
mhm.
which is the mother of Dylan Klebold, one of the Columbine killers.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it was a powerful book. I thought that was like I couldn't put it down. It was so insightful, and it was just her experience and her what was her experience. Does she know? What does she know? Just a whole from her perspective. And if that is something, if you want to transition to something, it's there's death and murder in
Yeah, I was like,
it.
that's the Christian will love this. No wonder he's
Yeah,
going nuts.
yeah. So
um,
it is kind of haunting and stuff. So and then yeah, I did also read the Selena book that Chris Perez wrote. I
mhm.
love you, Selena. So those are you know
Yeah, I heard that book is really controversial. Like, where like, as in like the family or the father was sued. That guy was Chris. He sued Chris for that book because it felt like it didn't portray Selena in the right light or their family in the right light. So
right. I think it's
they're
because
feuding.
Selena. There's an image of her, and there's an image that they want to protect and keep.
Of
But then
course,
there's a reality to who she was a human being,
of
regardless of
course.
the image. And so there was some book that inferred that she had lost her virginity before she was married,
Mm,
and so that she lost and so
yeah,
that was it. But there's just crashing down this image. But it was an honest testimony of Chris Perez, and I think that he was true. If you watch the movie and you read the book, you're like, okay, I get it. It makes more sense. Two
Mm,
things actually made more sense to me: why Jennifer Lopez was cast, and just the movie itself made, I believe Jennifer Lopez was cast because she really captured the essence of who
mm,
Selena was. They had similar personalities, and when I read the book, she was kind of feisty. She was more feisty than the people that are on,
mm.
and Jennifer Lopez has that kind of same quality. And I mean, look who she is now. I mean, if
Yeah,
Selena didn't pass away, she would have been the Jennifer Lopez. So,
yeah.
I mean, even more so because I think Selena was way more talented. But
Yeah, I mean, uh, I'm going to read a quote from James Baldwin about reading because it ties in what we were talking about, like biographies.
yeah.
Let me see, read that. You think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history in the world, but then you read. It was books that taught me that the things that tormented me the most were the very things that connected me with all the people who were alive, who had ever lived.
Mm,
So yeah, that's very poetic, and
right.
it's very dead on because like you feel like you're the only ones going through these issues, but then you pick up like a biography or a book, and then you see some character that you could totally relate to. It's like, wow, did the author follow me around for a while,
Yeah.
and that's what reading's all about, like finding the connections, you know
Right.
and and it's all about also entertaining, like books are supposed to be entertaining as well.
Right.
Yeah. So you're supposed to have fun with it. And I think school kind of makes it like a drag a little bit because you have to write out these reports and they choose these lame ass books to read.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, go for it.
No, I didn't know. Huh?
Oh, well, I mean, what was the worst book that you read in school that was required as a required,
That's a good question. I don't know. I think I liked all the books that I was like to read so well. I like all the books, and I know, call me crazy. I love writing reports. It was so much
Yeah.
like I look forward to writing them and really expressing my ideas and my thoughts.
Yeah.
What was a book that I didn't like in high school? Or even no, I don't recall. We read all the good ones. Hamlet. No, I didn't read Hamlet. That I read Beowulf. Um, it was so
Because like
long ago. I don't remember.
there's this one book, I think it was The House of Seven Gables, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, like we were reading that in English class, and it was like I read the back of it, and it takes place during like the Salem witch trials, and I'm like, all right, it's about witches, man. And I'm like, good. And then like we're like on the fifth chapter, and it was so fucking dry and boring. I'm like, fuck, man, somebody throw a pie, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, maybe that one. Maybe I want to say The Crucible when I was in high school.
Mhm.
It was something like, oh, I don't want to read this, and then when I went to one year, I went to Salem, Massachusetts, and actually went to like where all the witch trials happened,
Yeah.
and I went to see all these museums and all like, and they filmed Hocus Pocus there too, and it
Mhm.
just made it come to life for me so much that I bought the play again and I had to reread it, and I really enjoyed it as an adult. I don't think I appreciated it as a child.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think like high school or like they kind of like we are not mentally there yet to really appreciate these stories because I mean, The Great Gatsby is a really good story, and like I don't know, it was because of my school, but we read like we didn't read anything that was cool, like as
right.
like out of high school on my own, I read 1984, I read A Brave New World, I read Catcher in the Rye, I read
See, we read
the
Brave New
old
World
the
in
old man
school.
in the sea.
Yeah,
And these were books. We're supposed to read them in high school, but like my
yeah.
my teachers dropped the ball. Like I had to pick these
Oh
these books
wow.
up on my own, and they were brilliant. They were really
I
good.
loved, yeah, the Brave New World we read in school. I do remember that one because that one really like wow, this is a really powerful book, and I
Yeah.
really loved orgy porgy, and and the end. I loved that. See, you know what I loved about the end is a twist end, and it was a like a try. That's why I loved that was on This Is Now, because the endings were not happy endings. They were fateful endings where John's the John, he at the end he killed himself, and to me that was like powerful because he spent his whole life trying to like this is trying to be against the grain in this new society that he found himself in, and then at the end he falls, he gets so depressed that he takes the mana
Yeah.
and does the orgy with everybody, that he wakes up, he realizes, and he kills himself. I think that to me was a strong ending. That was
Yeah.
This Is Now. Also, you have to read that book. I
Yeah,
want
I'll
to
check
meet.
that out. Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
read that book. That sounds really cool.
it's a really. I mean, I love that book so much, and I've been wanting to meet someone who's read the book as well that I could converse with and see what was your experience, because it was about these two best friends and the way that the story, and it was interesting because it's a female writer, but she wrote male relationships in a way that a lot of females just don't understand, and it's really true. And so they were your best friends, and they were, he took one in because his parents shot each other, they killed each other, so he was raised like they acted like brothers, right? And throughout the book they were really close, but he then one of the characters got a girlfriend, and he kind of felt alienated, and his girlfriend had a little brother who was kind of a hippie, because it was written in the 60s, 70s. He was a hippie, and he got into LSD, and he started getting psychological problems. Well, it turns out that his best friend was selling drugs, and he found the drugs, and he turned him into the police. He turned him into the cops.
Um,
Yeah, and so and he goes to visit him in jail, and he goes, I hate you. And the book ends with him hating him. The book ends like, I'll never forgive you.
wow.
And so it was just I love the book. It was such a powerful book, because it's just like, wow, like what would I do in that situation? What would
Yeah,
but
I know that feeling where like you want to reach out with somebody who's read like that book, so you can just talk about it. It's like, remember that scene? I know that scene.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I read The Road. I remember that movie. They adapted it into a movie like back in the 2000s. As Ego Vorgensen's in it, and I really, he was the same author who wrote No Country for Old Men.
Oh, okay.
So
No, I don't know it.
I
Yeah.
really like that story because it almost feels like, well, it is a tale, but it's the tale lasted a long time. Like, as in, like, the author didn't give names to the characters. They just called it the man and the boy, and then throughout
Mm-hmm.
the story, so it kind of felt like, it was like, oh, the man and the boy could be anybody. It could be
Right.
you. It could be, and the story that was a very faithful adaptation, but very depressing, very, very, very depressing, because they had to fight against cannibals,
Oh, wow.
and
Right.
there's no food supply. The world's like falling. They don't give an explanation why the world ended, but it ended like people. I read blogs where like they think maybe it was like a super volcano that just covered the earth in ash or something
Mm,
like that, and it's really good. Like, I love, because it was like, it's an apocalypse based in reality,
right.
so it kind of like hits harder because like it could potentially happen. Because if
Right.
if nothing's growing, nobody's eating, then people are going to
Right.
eat each other. And
Right.
but yeah, it was a really good adaptation, a really good story, but it's very, very depressing.
Mm.
Because like the dies in the end, but the boy, it's a happy ending considering what world.
Right. Right.
Well, you know what? This is a good tie-in, because one of my questions is, what world would you want to live in? Like, what book would you want to live in if you had it for one day?
Wow, that's a good question. What book would I want to live in?
I don't know, because all the books that I read are fucking horror, so I don't want to live in any.
Yeah, these are none of the books.
Yeah.
Um, I would want to live in. Wow, that's a good question. Yeah, could it be a nonfiction book as well, or does it be
Yeah,
fiction?
sure. Yeah. Yeah, no problem.
Then I would want to live in the Shep Rose book, because I like his lifestyle.
You'll be his buddy, huh?
Yeah, exactly. But a fiction book, which book do I want to live in? I mean, I don't know. I like the job, but I don't know. There's no really. I don't know. That's a good question. I can't
Yeah.
pick and choose. It's like saying, which world do I want to live? There's so many like world. I like the world I live in now.
Yeah. I just want to live, like, I want to be like in the world where like there's like adventure and everything gets resolved in the end and everything's like all
Yeah.
hot. So you know what I mean? Like, it's just like maybe like a mystery, or like an
Right.
outer world type of story, like 2001. But even though 2001 is about like like man versus machine.
Right.
uh,
I think the reason why I can't pick one is because that's why I'm an actor, because I want to experience all the different worlds, but I want to also like kind of live in my reality. So that's what I love about being an actor. So you could
mm,
take, you could be in these stories. You can live. You know, I just did a short film on Thursday, and I was playing this character that was just so weird, so off the wall, and it was fun. And I think when you read your books, you put yourself in those worlds and you live in it for the time that you're. I mean, for me at least, I really immerse myself in the story,
Mm.
and so I don't know if I could just choose one.
That's well, it's in response, and that's fine. How about let's see. Uh, would you ever write your own book? I know you wrote like you're writing plays, but would you ever write like consider writing like a narrative?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I loved like English was my favorite subject, and I thought for sure I'm going to write something. Yeah, I would definitely consider writing something. I just don't. I don't know what I would write, and it's such a hard. I mean, you know, as a writer, it's hard to sit down and just start to write something, and then you don't know how you're going to get to. You know, maybe you have plot points, or maybe you have,
Yeah,
like I want to go there, but how do I get there? I don't
yeah,
know, and I get discouraged. But I'm learning to like just sit down and do it, and it'll work. You know, that I think writing songs, you know, as you know, like I do like to write songs and I learned
mm,
guitar and I finished an album
yeah,
and starting there writing songs has helped me. All right, like you don't like I wrote a lot of songs that didn't make it to this album that were crap songs before, you know, and you just start with crap and then eventually the crap turns into good.
yeah.
And so I think that's where I would just start, you know. But yeah, I would to answer that question, I would write something in the future.
I mean, I know those. What you're saying, where like, how do I get here? And like, I think by answering those questions, just all about sitting down and just getting to that point, and then you kind of work it out as you're kind of. It's kind of like you create plot points, but like it's also spontaneous at the same time because you're kind
Right.
of creating you're creating it and you're
Right.
leading to these points, and then when you're creating those spontaneous moments, it resolves that question, like that question that you have for the
Right.
future. Because right now I'm writing this character where like he's overweight, and I was like, how is he gonna lose weight? You know what I mean? Like, how is he gonna run the track? Is he gonna join sports? Like, my character won't join sports. He hates sports, and then like I have this moment where like they're one of the friends, she's moving to Texas, and they're like in high school, they can't drive, like they have bikes. And I'm like, wait a minute, he could just ride his bike and he loves it. That's how he loses weight.
Oh
I'm
my.
like, perfect. And I'm like, and then
Yeah.
I got my cigar and I threw it in the fucking on the desk. I'm like, that's it, I'm done. you know it's like those moments. That's what I love about writing, is like, even though you think you know where you're going, like getting there is like, it's so much fun because like, you surprise yourself
Right.
as when you're writing. I mean, is it the same thing when you're creating like lyrics, where like, how can I get there, and then
Yeah,
you figure it
definitely.
out.
It's very much like that. And then you get into the zone. There was a quote from one of the books I was reading. It says that action, you know, a lot of people mistake motivation and motivation leads to action. It's the other way around. Action leads to behavior, behavior leads to motivation. So when you're in the middle of it, just if you don't know where to start, just start. It'll come out. And
Mm,
so when you're right, like maybe at first, like I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. I'm stuck on this line. But then when I sit down with the guitar and I just start going at it, it'll just like
yeah,
flow out
for real.
naturally because you're in that zone of
Mhm.
creativity of yeah, and so it'll
It'll
just
work itself out, and I think
stuff out.
if you sit down and write your own story, it'll work itself out. It doesn't have to be perfect, because like we're perfectionists,
We're
and we want it to
perfectionists.
be,
Yeah,
so you stay like on that paragraph for a long ass time, but
right.
I'm
And
just
I
pushing
did.
through.
I'm sorry. Huh?
No, go for it.
Oh, I did take a creative writing class in college, and I wrote a 10-page short story. And the professor said, "This is a book that you should like really expand. This is something that can expand upon." So there's that. You know, I did. So there was that idea of being like, "Hey, maybe I'll write something in the future." And then one of the short films that I first wrote as at prose. So I wrote it as a short story and had someone adapted it to a script.
Mm.
And so there is that
It's in you.
like right there is kind of like all right, it's been there, it's there, so hopefully maybe I could build upon that. But I've never wrote more than like 10 or 20 pages as a short story.
Well, never say never, man. It's just one word at a time. I
Exactly.
I watch TikTok videos about, like, writers, and they say like, don't get discouraged. It's just like, just one word at a time, and soon enough you'll just have all these pages. So just
Right.
you're not in a race with anybody. You're just creating your own thing. Write what you want to read,
Right.
what you enjoy, and you'll eventually get there. Oh, and before we go, I also have you read I know what story that I want to live in now. It's the Ready Player One. Even though like it's a
Okay.
dystopian, story, but like the whole idea of like living inside of virtual reality,
Yeah.
it's fucking cool. You know, it's like it was a really good invention and like had a happy ending. And then the sequel wasn't the author wrote a sequel to the book. It wasn't that good, but
Mm.
that's the world that I would like to live in. Even though the world around them is falling apart, but the
Yeah.
virtual reality part was pretty kick-ass.
Yeah.
What I like about like that author, his name is I think it's Chris Elliott or Elliot Chris. Uh, it took him 10 years to write Ready Player One, and he worked out as a banker, and he had a family. So you know he would get out of work and you know take care of his family. And sometimes he said I would be too tired to write, but eventually I would pick it up. I would pick it up, and
Right.
10 years later, it you know it was directed by Steven Spielberg.
Wow.
And yeah, so that's really encouraging, you know, hearing
Yeah.
these stories, these underdog stories, you know. But you know, before we go, what are some of the books you recommend to our listeners?
Um, that was This Is Now by S.E.N. Definitely read it.
Yeah,
And yeah, just any, you know what, just like you said before, read anything that you love. I love these types of stories. I love, these helpful books and whatnot. So this is what motivates me to read. If you pick up something that you don't care about, you're not going to want to finish reading it.
mhm,
So yeah, those books. Anything that you love, just anything. And plays too. I love to read plays. And they're easy reads. It's for people who have never read before and they're trying to start kind of getting into reading. Read
yeah.
plays because they're really you'll be done with them within an hour or two, and they're really interesting. So yeah.
Okay, so what play should somebody read if it's like they're barely getting into like reading?
One of my favorite plays, man, that I've read is by the playwright named Neil Aboot. It was in a dark, dark forest. It's very, very intense. Um, or in a dark, dark place. One of those, in a dark, dark something.
And what else? Anything else?
He also has In a Forest Dark and Deep, and he has another one called Fat Pig. Those are good. I love Neil LaBute. I love his writing style. I think it's dark, but it's some of them is dark comedy, and some of them are darker, intense, and those are the kind of stories that I would love to be an actor to be part of, and
Yeah.
that's how I'd love to write. And one of my plays that I'm writing right now is very similar in tone to that.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, man. Before we go, like I know I don't want to butcher the author's name of Ready Player One, so I researched it. It's Ernest Klein. That's his name. So yeah, if he ever watches my show, I don't want to say he doesn't even know my name, man. No, I googled it, man. So yeah, I really admire and respect like his career. Like it took him 10 years to break out as an author. So it gives me motivation to finish my stuff. So yeah, well, Byron, thank you so much for joining me today on Casually Christian. I really appreciate it. I hope to have you again, for another show.
Definitely.
Like
Thank you
our
for
conversation
having
is always good, man. I
Yeah,
love talking to you, and we should have
me
some
too.
lunch soon, some Thai
Yes,
food because
yes.
we were
I
talking about
food.
that because I love fucking carbs. All
Awesome.
right, Byron. Well, have a good
All right.
Saturday. I'll talk
Thank
to
you
you
very
soon,
much.
man.
You too. Yep. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, guys. Well, that's our shit. That's our shit. That's our show for today. Thank you for watching. And if you're watching this on Facebook, please remember to follow and share. And if you guys can, go on YouTube, hit like and subscribe, and smash that notification bell to catch the latest episodes of Casually Christian presented by Livestream My Event. And if you want to produce your own podcast, please reach out to my friend Emmanuel Alvarez at Livestream My Event. He'll connect you in the same way he connected me, and it's good. It's good working with him, man. Like we're creating a lot of great content, and also we're also now on Spotify. So our latest episode of Casually Christian, we talked about movies, is now streaming on Spotify. So please follow that platform. So until next time, guys, bid you adieu. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.